You'll never get that moment back, that crucial conversation, that one sentence where everything could have turned and didn't, not because you weren't smart or right or ready, but because your words faltered, you over-explained, you rambled, you hesitated when clarity was needed most, and the door, that unseen threshold between who you were and who you could have become, closed silently, without cruelty, just without you. We think language is just communication, but it's not. It's direction, it's decision, it's identity. And the phrases you choose in decisive moments don't just shape outcomes, they shape you. Most of us were never taught this. We were taught to be kind, polite, adaptable, but we were never taught how to be clear. Never taught how to speak when the stakes are high, without shrinking, performing, or spiraling. And so we stumble into our most defining moments with a script that wasn't written by us. We say the wrong thing, or we say too much, and the result is quiet regret. This is not a video about being clever with words. It's a manual for returning to the kind of speech that moves mountains, not because it's loud, but because it is still, precise, and grounded. The Stoics knew this. They trained themselves to speak from their center, not their fear. And now, centuries later, neuroscience is confirming what philosophy always knew, that the brain, under pressure, doesn't seek more words. It seeks more certainty. So the question is not, what should I say? The question is, how do I speak from presence, not panic? Because in moments that matter, you don't rise to the occasion. You fall to the level of your language. It starts like this. You're in the room. You've done the work. You've earned your place. And still, your mouth dries. Your thoughts blur. And when it's your turn to speak, you don't speak from presence. You speak from fear. You say, I'm not sure, but you offer a diluted version of your insight just in case it offends. You reach for words that soften, cushion, make you sound agreeable. And the moment, that brief window where power and perception collide, passes. Not because you weren't ready, but because you weren't rooted. You spoke from survival, not essence. And no one in the room could see the cost, but you could. Because when you leave that meeting, that date, that crossroads, something aches. Not failure, but misalignment. The ache of having shown up, but not as yourself. And it's subtle. No one punishes you for being polite. No one corrects you for being tentative. But slowly, those micro moments of speech shape your reality. You stop being asked hard questions. You stop being considered for real decisions. You're liked, but not followed. You're respected, but not remembered. Because presence isn't about being heard. It's about being felt. And if your words don't carry your soul, no one will carry your message. You don't realize it until later. Until you're alone, playing the moment back in your mind. Rewriting it with stronger words, firmer tone, clearer presence. But memory is cruel that way. It lets you see the perfect sentence. Once it's too late to speak it, you begin to notice the pattern. In job interviews, you understate your worth. In relationships, you downplay your needs. In conflict, you retreat behind vague phrases. I guess. Kind of. Maybe not. You become a diplomat in your own life. Skilled in smoothing tension, allergic to precision, but life respects precision. It's not aggression the world rewards. It's clarity, And clarity begins before the sentence. It begins in the nervous system. Because your brain, under pressure, does not default to strength. It defaults to survival. Neuroscience calls it the amygdala hijack. That moment when fear takes the mic from reason. Your language shortens. Your sentences lose structure. Your words become escape routes instead of anchors. And in that state, you're not speaking from truth. You're speaking from defense. The Stoics knew this feeling. They walked into Roman courts, battlefields, and betrayals with one inner command: return to the center. Speak from there. That's why Epictetus said, first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. Because all speech begins inside. And if the inside is chaos, the outside will be noise. There is a different way to speak. Not louder, not harder, but truer. It begins with presence, not posture, not performance. Presence means you are not seeking approval with your words. You are resting inside them. Then comes precision. Precision is not cold. It is not robotic. It is merciful. Because when you speak precisely, you free the other person from guessing. You tell them exactly where you stand. Exactly what you mean. Nothing more, nothing less. And finally, the pause. The most underused tool in language. Most people speak to avoid silence. The Stoic speaks through it. Because the pause does what no phrase can. It holds the sentence open. It lets your words echo. It shows you are not afraid to stop. That you don't need to fill the space to prove you belong in it. Presence, precision, pause. These are not just verbal techniques. They are a way of being. A way of speaking from the calm core of your being, even when the room spins, even when stakes are high, even when your throat wants to close. When you master these, you stop trying to win conversations. You start to shape them. You stop arguing to be right. You start speaking to be real. And the brain, the person in front of you, feels it. Because assertive language doesn't threaten the nervous system, it settles it. It creates a rhythm of safety and respect, where people stop reacting and start listening, and that opens every door that matters. I remember the last time I betrayed myself with words. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't cruel. It was familiar. Someone asked what I needed, and I said, whatever works for you. It sounded considerate, mature, flexible, but what it really was erasure, because I did know what I needed. I just didn't want it to be inconvenient. And in that tiny moment, I gave away a piece of myself to protect someone else's comfort. I used to call it kindness. Now I know better. It was fear. Fear of seeming selfish. Fear of being called demanding. Fear that my needs were somehow too much. So I spoke in safe phrases, in socially approved silence, until I realized no one was going to come rescue my voice from the middle of those sentences. I had to, and it didn't happen all at once. It began with 3 words: I need clarity. Not maybe, not if it's okay. Just I need clarity. It shook something loose in me, the simplicity, the audacity of saying something without shrinking. Since then, I've practiced speaking like I trust myself. Short sentences, still eyes, steady breath, not to dominate, not to impress, but to return to who I was before I learned to negotiate with my own truth. It's not easy, but it's clean. And every time I speak from that place, even if the room doesn't change, I do. The Stoics weren't interested in rhetoric for show. They weren't performers. They were purifiers. Their language wasn't decorative. It was decisive. Marcus Aurelius didn't write to charm. He wrote to cut through, to speak the truth as you see it, without apology, without concealment, without fear. That's what he trained for. Not to impress an audience, but to keep himself anchored when the world shook. Because to speak clearly is to live clearly. The same way the body tightens when it senses dishonesty, the mind falters when the tongue strays from the soul. And most of us don't realize our language is not just heard by others. It's heard by ourselves. Every diluted phrase you speak, your nervous system records it. Every time you say, "I think," instead of "I believe," "I'm not sure," instead of "this is true for me," you send a signal inward. I do not trust myself enough to stand here. And that self-distrust compounds. It becomes posture. It becomes hesitation. It becomes your presence or lack of it. But the Stoics knew a well-lived life is not loud. It is deliberate. And nothing reveals your deliberateness more than the way you speak when it matters. Do you fill the air with noise to prove you're smart? Or do you allow your silence to be an extension of your speech? The world is filled with talkers, but the ones who move it, who alter its rhythm, are the ones who've learned the difference between expression and exposure. They don't speak to be seen. They speak because they see. And in that clarity, doors open, not always immediately, but undeniably. So now the moment returns. That conversation, that decision, that turning point, and this time, you don't rush in with apologies. You don't over-explain, overcompensate, overthink. You breathe. You root. And you say what needs to be said, no more, no less. You let the pause hold the weight. Because you understand now, the strongest part of your sentence is the silence that follows it. That's when people feel you. Not in the performance, in the restraint, in the courage it takes to speak from clarity and then stop. No disclaimers, no ornaments, just truth delivered with dignity. That's presence, that's precision, that's pause. And those three things, spoken with consistency, will carry you further than charisma ever could. The brain hears confidence, but the soul hears congruence. When your words match your inner stillness, there is nothing to prove, only something to transmit. You don't have to shout to open doors. You just have to speak from the place that no one can fake, the place beneath your fear. The room may not erupt in applause, but it will adjust itself around your presence. Because language, when aligned with truth, becomes more than communication. It becomes orientation, a way to walk through life with fewer words and deeper roots. So speak from stillness. Let your sentences land, and when the moment ends, don't fill it. Let the silence speak back. Because the most powerful thing you can say is often nothing at all.